Hi, good to see you. Just in time for your Virgo September 2020 tarot reading and forecast. I'm Nigel Saint James, and it's great to see you again. Great to see the subscribers back again in particular. I've done some readings for a few of you, haven't I, since over the course of the last month. And it's been great to get to know you personally. Of course, if you'd like to have a personal one-on-one reading with me, then just check out the information which is in the description box below, and you'll get to see how easy it is to make that happen. All right, let's get things underway. Incidentally, the developer of this deck has provided a card for Virgo itself, which we'll have a look at. Quite interesting in a way. This deck is an independent deck that is out of print and is not going to be reprinted, according to the artist. So it is in effect a museum piece. And it is one that is hotly sought after on the second-hand market, but of course I'm not going to pass mine on, except after my death. Here is the Ace of Wands. Yeah, what a great card that is, the Ace of Wands. Yes, I'm not going to sell it. It's the artwork is sensational. I think you'll agree with this. And it's just beautiful. So it will be like gold, it seems, for years to come. Now, what is there? There's Judgment. Major Arcana number 20. It's interesting. Let me see what that has to say. Have you been having a good month? A bit of pain, isn't it, this COVID thing? There's the Hermit. Well, there's another Major Arcana card for you, the Judgment and the Hermit. We'll see what there is as a sort of a central energy coming through here and see how it's to be played. It's this, whatever that is. The Eight of Swords. Fantastic. And sometimes the artwork in swords cards can be a bit melodramatic. I actually don't think there's a problem with swords. People think, as I do, that it can sometimes be difficult, the suit of swords, because it results from the union of the suits of fire and water. Did you know that? And of course, there's a conflict there, but it's things to do with the mind. It's not things that are actually happening to you in real life, although sometimes perception can be reality, but in this case, you have such good cards around it that I don't think that's going to be a problem. Now, let's have a look at this one here. There's the Knight of Swords. You see, good things in store. Why don't you come, sit down next to me. Let's have a look at these cards together while I do the reading for you. Now, incidentally, next month's reading will be published on Wednesday, the 9th of September, at 2 p.m. US Eastern Time. I told you I'd show you this card of the Virgo astrology, which the artist of this deck has produced. Well, what do you make of that? What do you make of that? Well, Virgo, of course, is the sign both of the Virgin and of the Hag, the White Witch and the Nun. She's the healer and the teacher, and she's always striving for perfection, which, as you know, is impossible, but that doesn't stop you striving. But I guess at least it gives her something to do, doesn't it? Now, it's all bleached white and institutional white walls, but it's also about wisdom, I think, this card for you this month. Rather than a wispy virginal maiden, which is gross, think of nun and witch, keepers of the flame, keepers of the knowledge. Now, the clover is Virgo, really, at its most Virgo, a tiny bud of perfection and intricacy, but it also heals you, right? It's also good for you medicinally. It heals you from coughing fits and indigestion, and I know that it does help alleviate the symptoms of menopause, the change of life for the ladies. Now, we've looked at that, so let's deal with it and put it away and have a look at this first card here, which is what you drew, which is the Ace of Wands. There is a lot of Virgo around this card in particular, and there's also here Cancer and Leo, so I think they'll be important to you. This is the Lord of the root of the powers of fire. Now the image in here is, I think, of there's an Eastern European myth, a Slavic myth of the firebird, which had feathers that just one feather could illuminate a whole room, and it usually gave way to fairy tales in which the hero would find a illuminated feather and go off in search of the bird, and along the way have various obstacles and be helped by people on his journey and in capturing the bird and bringing it back. And of course, any trials and tribulations he encountered along the way, he blamed on the firebird itself. But this has actually got a very positive meaning for you, this thing here, because it is really about you having, during this month, very high level of energy, very strong energy. It's about new starts. Could well be about a passionate union, which could well be within a coupled relationship already, or within a new relationship. Certainly you will feel your life forces just going through the roof. Now, you'll have, I think, the attributes of all the other fire signs during this period. Aries will give you leadership and desire, Leo, character and energy, and Sagittarius, insight and philosophy. I think it's important to note also that I think that the things that will coming through is that this is going to represent, this does represent a time in your life, I think, when you get a breakthrough moment and insight, and you feel inspired and motivated to move your life forward. A big opportunity is opening up for you. You have the possibility, because the aces are about a possibility, of tapping into your latent potential. It's a perfect time to draw upon your imagination and make your dreams come true. What this is also about for you is grounding the expansive, passionate, and creative fire energy represented in the suit of wands, and by this fire bird, as I see it. Now, as the first card in this suit, this is about providing the base needed to support this energy. You must have a container for the fire so it can grow. The container is provided by grounding, which means being centered and having a solid connection with the earth. Now, this is particularly needed in modern cultures which have a more mental energy that tends to move us away from our bodies and disconnect us from the earth. And you have a particular insight into your body and how your body responds to things, don't you? But once grounded, the fire energy, I think, can be activated and harnessed in useful ways. Without this, the fire can get out of control and lead to scattered, unbalanced, or inflamed behaviors and states of consciousness. Grounding is particularly important when you find yourself feeling overwhelmed or confused, hypersensitive or spacey. This is saying that there is a new creative spark that wants to take form. The fire energy wants to rise up in you, bringing more expansion and passion into your life. So make sure you are grounded and centered so that you can handle it. Now, this next card that I'm going to look at underneath it is also Virgo. So this is right on point for you this month. This is Mercury ruling Virgo, with Mercury exalted. This is really the prophet of the eternal, I call it, the magus of the voice of power. And I think that you may well find that you become something of a mentor to other people. You'll have a great degree of wisdom, but this card was pointing also to that. In fact, so was this card here. I'm just going to pull this back again. This white color that's around there reflects to me this idea, this message of wisdom that was coming through for you this month. So I think that that's the case. There's also some sort of a retirement, I think, where you sit down and you work out what it is that you are planning to do, getting away from a situation in order to get a better insight into it, or becoming aware of something that you were previously in the dark about. Spending some alone time, really, for some soul searching and recalibrating yourself. And if you do that, accept your aloneness. Don't concern yourself with people who don't understand you, who would rather see you be part of the herd. If you should meet a wise leader or teacher, then join her or join him. Maybe ask yourself this: do you have any unresolved situations or relationships in your life? And to make a list of all situations which you now wish to resolve in some way to bring them to completion. Because whoever embarks on the search for internal light must not be encumbered by unresolved conflicts. Accounts have got to be settled, but always have this thought in mind, though, that I enjoy the feeling of completion and resolution, but I will not compromise that which is important to me. Yes, this energy down here in this position really represents the archetype, I suppose, of one who has gone their own way and discovered spiritual wisdom. But this hermit, doesn't need to be alone, even though you might be having some alone time. And he doesn't need to be with others constantly. He moves backwards and forwards in a natural rhythm between solitude and community, bringing the wisdom from his inner search to enrich his relationships with others. And if I can refer to her as a she becomes of service to others, not by leaving herself behind, but by being herself fully. Yeah, there is a cyclical nature of things that is important to understand as well. Often we seek the brightness of the full moon and shun the waning moon, don't we? A good example is your attitudes towards illness and aging, both of which are stages of physical decline. But decline has its place, as each phase has its place. And this hermit has learned to harmonize with this. If things are in a phase of decline, he honors the decline. If energies are building, he cooperates with that. I think this energy can also represent turning inward into the dark terrain of the unknown self, because it is only by entering into the unknown that we make it known. This is a journey that all of us must take. You bring the light of consciousness into the unconscious, and you make it conscious. Now, there are many tools, I guess, to help you do that, including dream work, art and expressive therapies, journal writing, psychotherapy, and awareness practices. Eventually, this inward journey takes you beyond the confines of your personality into the larger mysteries. You become a lover of mysteries, a lover of your own inner nature, and you discover the light inside and are challenged to live from there. You may be getting to know some part of your personal unconscious, learning to enjoy solitude, or going deeper into the experience of no self. I'm going to look next at this central card, which is this Eight of Swords. Hello, Eight of Swords. What do you have to say for us? Well, look, with the eights, generally we need patience, we need fortitude, and we need some skills. Now that you have figured out your desires, you need a plan in place to bring it into your life. Sometimes you just want someone to give you what you want. A lot of the time, I'm tired, my feet hurt, just give me the thing and let me get on with it. It doesn't even have to be the right thing. I'll take whatever you've got. Or we have tried and failed so many times that we just can't take one more failure, so we give up. We wait for rescue. Here we are then, in some respects, surrounded by swords, feeling helpless, feeling trapped. But if you would just drop the act, pick up one of the swords and use it to free yourself, you could go back into the world, but sometimes you might think it's easier to pretend like that's not even possible. It's swords, this suit, air, so it's about not saying what you need to say as much as not doing what you need to do. And this blue that's here, to me, represents the throat chakra. That's speech, and the mint plant above this fellow's head offers healing and comfort if only he would reach out for it. Now, the astrology of the card is actually very interesting, placed in the center here, with this ace, this hermit, and judgment next to it. It's because it is Jupiter ruling the first decan of Gemini. Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and so is 180 degrees away from its home in Sagittarius in order to get into Gemini, and therefore the astrologers on YouTube will tell you that Jupiter is in detriment. So Jupiter is weakened, and the inquisitive nature of Gemini inhibits Jupiter. So a weakened Jupiter means maybe we can't get what we want due to too many, which is the Gemini aspect of it, distractions, which may or may not be self-created. And in line with what the hermit was telling us, maybe it's a solution is to take some time out and do something different. Maybe you could, in which event, you can then let Jupiter come in and do its work and let things settle down and come back to the thing with new eyes. It could be that you're having a hard time making up a decision as which is the best option for you to take at the moment. You could have analysis paralysis with your energy scattered, which is Gemini, on a lot of unproductive thoughts. So what are the alternatives that you are torn between now? Just relax and let things develop. So I said that's what the eights are about. Say to yourself, I'm relaxed and trust life. You know, I think that in large respect it's a time for you to have like some calmness and composure, especially if there's a difficult situation around. And that's because any strong judgment or emotional reaction can create a kind of static that interferes with clarity of perception and evenness in the mind and emotional body. Calmness and composure is the result of not getting caught in these judgments and reactions. It is the evenness that comes when you neither reject nor cling to various mental and emotional states that arise. Now, I think what we need to do is to focus on acceptance of contraction as a part of life and the cultivation of calmness and composure to help us deal with uncomfortable states. Calmness and composure is not an enforced evenness created by flattening out your emotions, by the way, nor is it a blurring of your perceptions. Rather, you are still aware of your internal distress, perhaps, but you don't react to it as much because you have an evenness inside. Now, practicing this calmness and composure doesn't mean that you never get ruffled. Lord, no. You can be totally triggered by an event and yet handle that turmoil with calmness and composure by feeling your response moment to moment and letting it go. you can put space around it and not get so caught up in the content of it. It is this breathing room that allows you to avoid reacting automatically and lets you decide what action is the most skillful in the situation. And then when you've got that calmness about there, I think you'll make the right decisions as to what to do with yourself, because this card is talking about that to me. You know, these things say different things to me at different times of the years. Now, I can't quite make out what that is supposed to be. It's some sort of a squishy object or other. But this is the spirit of the primal fire, and I see a lot of Pluto in this energy here. There is a decision that you're going to make that's going to have some sort of a pretty strong impact in your life, such as a lifestyle or a job change. But this is going to be positive for you. It's a time for you to move on after seeing the bigger picture. It's time to take out yourself from events to get to the bigger picture. It's about resolution and closure. And it's also about, I think, getting back to your original blessing. You may have heard of original sin. I don't believe in that for 1 second, nor do I believe, well, it's just not true. My apologies to the Christian faithful, or those sects of it which come up with it. I mean, St. Augustine came up with that in the 4th century, seven centuries after Genesis was written, as it was said to come about of Adam and Eve being thrown out of the garden. But I think of original blessing. And this original blessing, I think, which is you're being asked to look at, is less a process of exclusion than it is of redemptive inclusion. Rather than push away and reject that which is off the mark, I think your lesson is to lovingly embrace it. To tell you the truth, let me pull this in a bit closer again. Embrace it. You know, Shakespeare wrote the play Hamlet, and in Act 2, Scene 2, he said, "For there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so." So in order for you to lovingly embrace that which is off the mark, you have to transcend judgment in the way we usually know it. You have to stop saying this is right and this is wrong. The mind sees what is wrong with someone, while the heart, looking through the eye of love, sees what is right. It sees the other person's basic goodness and how they're cruel, distorted, or unskillful. Wrong behaviors are simply a product of their conditioning, upbringing, and experiences. And if we can put ourselves in the other's shoes and really understand what they've been through, what influences have squeezed and hardened them, then we will feel much more accepting. We will see how far they've come rather than how far they fall short of the standards in our mind. And one way to cultivate compassion, I suppose, is to develop your capacity to see other people more clearly. Another powerful way is to see your own mind more clearly. If you watch carefully, you'll notice how judgments arise from defensiveness, disappointment, and from seeing only the surface of the situation and not the whole picture. Another way to develop compassion is to work on really loving yourself, learning to embrace your hurts and be gentle with your tender feelings. It means honoring your needs and uniqueness and becoming intimate with the preciousness hidden inside of you. Now, this comes as you open your heart to yourself. You may have to work through several barriers, it's true, as you do this and accomplish it. And this is very different from chiding yourself for being judgmental and pushing yourself to be nicer. What I'm proposing is not an act of will, but a natural outpouring of the heart. The heart is inherently loving. As this love grows, it embraces more and more of you. You can love the places that are unloving, just as you can feel compassion for those parts that appear cold-hearted and lacking in compassion. Rather than judge yourself for being judgmental, recognize the insecurity and need this comes from and forgive yourself. Look, we're all judgmental at times. Our culture trains us to be judgmental, yet in spiritual work, the point is not to see who is better or worse. The point is simply to see where you are off the mark, where you are not whole, and how you can move back to the state of innocence and wholeness that is your underlying nature. That takes us finally then to the Lord of Winds and Breezes, this Knight of Swords. Let's have a look at him. Now, there is around here a lot of Aquarius. Is there? Yeah. There's a lot of Aquarius, and there is a lot of Capricorn. It is, I think, a young man, probably, although court cards can be women, as the genders are interchangeable. So a young person who's intellectual, full of ideas and plans, very clever but unstable sometimes, can be quite domineering, very elusive and hard to pin down, but can be very impressionable from what other people have to say. Now, he's the airy part of air, which means that there's a lot of ideas going on here. Things are turning around and around and around, but there's really not anything really quite practical that's coming out the other end of it. Generally someone who's got a good mind, loves thinking, questioning and philosophizing, good at creating ideas quickly, but really moves on without developing them. So this is something that you need to do. Have the ideas, but make sure you turn them into practical effect. And this guy's intellect can be draining to those who can't keep up with him. Now, I think you'll be independent, private. Some people might find you difficult to get to know, you know. And it's also the case that some people may, so just be aware of this. Find that you might lack some sort of emotional warmth. And it can indicate the need, I think, to slow down and analyze your thoughts to see if something practical can be gained from them. What beliefs, feelings, or relationships do you really have, or programmed ideas do you allow to limit yourself? Say to yourself this: my creative possibilities have no limits. And you've got great things to do this month. Good job, Virgo. Well done. That's the way it is for you this month. Well, there you go. September 2020, another month and a step closer to the end of the calendar year. Let's all keep our spirits up, shall we, during this time. I think there's some aggravation yet to happen, but you are going to be fine according to that reading, and that's the most important thing. And in any event, I want you until next month to remember one thing always, and it is this: that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Until then, it's bye for now.